Welcome to Spiritual Changemakers, the podcast that guides you through tough times with practical tools and inspiring stories. I'm Andrea Thomas, your host and the Sacred Transitions Coach. Join us as we hear from spiritual changemakers who have connected with their higher power and overcame adversity. Whether you are navigating a difficult transition or seeking to deepen your spiritual practice, our podcast provides guidance to help you find magic in the change. Come on this journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and transformation with us and unlock your potential to become your best self. Hello, my beautiful spiritual change makers. Welcome to a new episode. Today we have Payhuan. It's a futurist, an innovator, and I'm so excited because we are going to discuss about how do you shift your identity. We are going to talk about how do you transition from one name to another, what makes you do that, and how do you embody this new identity when you create this shift. Welcome. Thank you for saying yes to the invitation and being on this podcast. I'm so excited after we have met in person at Unveil University, and we've had some fun. We had some beautiful conversations now to connect here to share your wisdom, your knowledge, and your transitions with our audiences. So, Payhuan, before we dive deep really into this podcast episode, one of the questions I love asking my guests is, what is spirituality? How would you define that?
I think spirituality for me is being in touch in a methodical, consistent way with our essence, with the essence and the depths of who we are. And yeah, that's what spirituality. So someone who is spiritual, I think, is someone who is close to their essence. And being that our essence is made of the same things, when someone becomes spiritual or more spiritually oriented, they automatically become far more connected and unified with this perceived division that otherwise the ego loves to feel.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for your definition on spirituality. And also, would you like to share this a little bit about you, about what is it that you do these days, and what's something super exciting going on in your life these days?
Sure. Well, as a serial entrepreneur, I think this is my seventh company now, creating things that are really passionate, deeply felt, and also coming from that spirit is something I just kind of learned to listen to as an entrepreneur. But I do consider my current endeavor in creating and launching and now scaling globally Immortal Studios, a multifaceted entertainment studio that is building an interconnected world of characters and heroes that come from the martial arts fantasy genre, where spirituality and spiritual transformation are at the core of what the genre has always been about. It's been about the transition of people from ordinary people into, for the lack of a better word, I don't like to use the word superheroes because I feel like it's overused, but I just like call them spiritual superheroes. And to frame it in a way where these characters are accessible to every kind of archetype, every kind of culture and background. And these kind of characters and stories become pervasive in global pop culture. That's my endeavor right now. So in a way, it is about bridging the East and the West, bringing the world together through this kind of transformative storytelling. The other hand, as a Californian, I'm calling you from Los Angeles right now. It's my home. It's been my home. I grew up in Hollywood, actually. It's about connecting creativity, the dream making, the culture of Hollywood, the technology, innovation, and the product thinking of Silicon Valley. I call it, it's really bringing the four directions together. One brand new company that I happen to think is the most exciting one in Hollywood.
Mm, that sounds very exciting. And how do these personalities that you then just described, the spiritual, I know you said you don't really want to call them superheroes, but they are superheroes. How is
I
this
call them
multi?
martial heroes. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
How is this is helping people. Tell me, like, why would people would be interested in something like this, and how it helped them in their life?
I think people who are doing the work right now would know we are all held together by stories.
Mm-hmm.
Stories hold our lives together and create the perceived reality. Stories about ourselves, who we are, what we're not, how reality works, how the world actually operates, how we perceive others. So in a way, our world, and I think quantum physics, quantum mechanics has proven it, the world is held together by stories. Sadly, the stories we hold about ourselves to be true about the world, a lot of it has been in error, has been captured in error. And when you're going through these false stories, we experience just a lot of negativity, a lot of division, a lot of sadness, a lot of negative emotions and thwarted wishes and desires. And the sad reality is people who are going through this, I think the majority of the planet haven't found their way to a path that really works for them. They're not even on the, but what they do, what we all do in this media driven world is we all go to our various screens, whether it's like a little phone screen right now or a computer screen, your TV screen, your movie screen, that's to feed us, to feed our minds, to feed our perceptions. And those are the streams that's actually defining what reality is for the majority of the planet, irregardless of culture, nationality, backgrounds. By doing our work in Immortal and choosing a popular genre that people love anyways. People love martial arts fantasy movies. People love superhero movies. People love action adventure movies. Those are the things the masses will go to. Currently, they're not really doing the things that we're talking about. In fact, many of them are doing the opposite. Right? The things that are creating in our neural pathways and our belief systems and our bodies and our minds and relationships could be described as nihilism, where nothing really matters. I think a lot of the stories we watch today ultimately boil it down. The gist of the story they're sharing with you is it doesn't really matter. There is no intrinsic meaning. Or hedonism is another value from watching a lot of our entertainment programming, especially coming out of Hollywood, which is pursue pleasure at all costs. Do whatever feels good for you, do what feels right for you, and then again, nothing else matters. Or I think dystopianism. We are inevitably on a collision course with history. The world is going to be bombed out. Civilization will end. Fighters will come out from the cities, and we're going to be caught in a futuristic world post some kind of catastrophe. Those are just some of the things. Or very, very wrong things about mental health. Those are the big areas that I think that are being projected from storytelling. And from doing your work that the subconscious mind that doesn't even question these values come to us in the form of media. Whatever
Yes.
we're watching on the screen, we're watching not just with our conscious mind, but with our subconscious mind. If you think about it, it's actually quite a dangerous and very, very problematic world. So the space that we hold at Immortal is by creating characters that people first can identify with. Yes, this person is going through exactly what I'm going through, or their tendencies are just like mine. And there aren't that many variations of human problems and issues and challenges, actually.
Mm.
There really aren't. It's just figuring out the archetypes, and sometimes people need to see characters that they can relate to who looks like them. Maybe they're speaking their language. Maybe they're exactly the kind of trauma patterns. It's about identifying these different archetypes, if you will. And then we show it through our storytelling. We take our fans and our watchers journey to watch people like them, or they identify with, or they look up to, or they relate to, go on a hero's journey to from not knowing to knowing.
Mm.
And this is what transformation happens, because when you see it on screen, you identify with it, you're actually learning and you're growing with them. And then ultimately it's about also having profound, deeper emotional experiences. And
Yep.
that openness created, like how many times come from a television show or a movie, especially because they're long and more like you walk away feeling, wow, there was something happened,
Something shifted.
something shifted than what I have now. So that's like the magic of what we do. And it's a privilege and it's an honor. And so that's why, uh, that's why we exist, because we can actually have this conversation with people we'll never meet in a lifetime. And we'll be able to test that kind of storytelling and scale it for the benefit of the planet. Because a successful movie or some trending in popular culture, they become memes. They live on and they really influence the public discourse. That's the space we hold at Immortal to be to be that to be that shining light during this moment in global popular culture. And as I have been in this business for some time, and I talk to people, and I look at what kind of stories that are being made, and I just realized that wow, this is not many people hold that perspective actually, or or the people who hold that perspective aren't enabled and empowered by a by an industry that is still considering profit at all costs,
Yeah. And
as opposed to the net impact that the storytelling has on the psyche, on the reality of customers, which is everybody in the planet.
and I love your vision and I love what you shared and what I heard you saying, it's really that no matter what people are going to consume. Yes, people are consuming on TV, social media, and so on. But what we consume is very important. And then the identification that we have with the stories that we perceive on this virtual world is going to influence how we also behave and act in our real world. And the vision that you have to be able to bring this into the world where people are gonna have these personalities that is going to help them see things from different perspective and actually have empowered story. And where is this name? Where is the name of the cable?
The name of the company is it's Immortal Studios.
Yes. How did you came up with this name, Immortal Studios? Because I love it. I
Feels
love
nice,
it.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
I grew up, I was a big student of popular culture, especially works in this martial arts fantasy genre where you're always dealing with. It's always been about the hero's journey. It's always about going from zero to hero and
Mhm.
everything in between. So the book that had the most impact on me when I was a kid was actually by my father, who was one of the top creators of the genre. So I was born into a family where this form of entertainment and storytelling is my lineage, my heritage. And this book was written in Chinese, and if you roughly translated it into what chronicles of the immortal swordsman. So the word immortal was in that many, many decades ago. When I initially set this out as a game, as a television property, it was translated from Chinese into English. And that word immortal, when I translated it, was just really intriguing and it stuck with me. And when it came time to birth this big concept, it just felt like a natural because, of course, the real insinuation is that we are all immortal. We are all
Yeah.
immortal souls. And that is the essence of who we are. So it is a reminder. And of course, immortal takes on many different means that doesn't, a lot of people think about immortals as never dying. So in a way, yes, like that flame, that consciousness, that awareness never dies. So we are immortal and we are Immortal Studios where we are committed to awakening that immortal spark. And we call that awakening the hero in everybody.
So beautiful. And what you're doing with this mission, with the big mission that you have right now in this company, it's also helping people shift their identity. Yes.
Yes.
And you just shared with me that a year ago or so, you have drastically changed your identity through changing your name. And I think changing your name is such a big thing because you have been that person and I identified yourself with that name your whole life until you got to a point where like, okay, I'm rebirthing myself. So can you share with us a little bit about that process? Like what got you to even to this point of changing your name, changing your identity, and how did you even chose your new name that is it's this new persona, this new identity?
Sure. I am actually an immigrant to America. I was born in a very traditional Chinese family. But the name that I use, Payhuan, is actually an actual birth name. But as a boy, I loved Asia, I loved Taiwan, I loved the greater China region, and I went to the West. And back then, it was customary to make it easy for people to change into to adopt an English name. So it's easy for people to remember. And also, I think the thinking was that in order to be an American, you had to fit in and be like everybody else. That was the dream. There was nothing wrong with it. It's just that I never intentionally decided, woke up one day that I was going to stop being Taiwan, but it just happened. It was almost like this name that I was, and I don't know if you know how Chinese names are constructed. Like my name is deeply meaningful. It connects me to my lineage. Pei actually means nurture, and one is the universe. So there is like a deep embedded meaning in my name. And there is, I imagine that strongly, there aren't too many K1s walking around, but there's many, 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 many Peters walking around. I became Peter and it was fine, became a professional persona and just became my whole identity. And I just did it unquestionably. And it wasn't until I started to do a lot of deep work. And when it came to ancestral healing, and really, because after a certain point when you're healing, you're really going to the source, you start to process and you trace the lineage. And this is the journey that I've been on for quite some time. I would say for the past 20 years, doing a lot of lineage work. The more profound I got, the more I longed to be a part of that, to be more deeply rooted in it. And a few years ago, when I had the chance to visit my grandfather's ancestral home and meet different relatives, the family tree was presented to me. And I really saw it in that moment that I am part of this amazing lineage of people from my father's side, from my mother's side, and their blood, their consciousness, their dreams and aspiration, their hopes, and their strengths, regality, really that flow through. They stand with them and they stand with me in this really beautiful moment. And then my name to stop feeling rushed. People would call me Peter, and I would say that sounds so not like me. It sounds just sounds like a symbol that doesn't begin to scratch and reflect who I am. And that's when I decided just ordering a drink one night. And the bartender asked me what my name was. My name is Pavon. Just says, oh, that's a beautiful name. And that just did it for me. Yes. So I went back to my birth name, which nobody knew in America in the West. 'Cause they never used. And that was over a year ago. And I still continue to have many conversations every day with members of my family. I had to correct my brothers, my best friends, people in business. And as somebody with a public record, I, I must have done, I don't know, 100 TV interviews as Peter Shiao. So it's just been a really, really big thing, but it invites a really amazing conversation. And I think the assumption has always been in order to be an American, you have to give up who you are to join and become a melting pot. But I am just consciously doing something different and saying, no, we don't have to give up who we are. In fact, I want to bring more of what I am and who I am into this conversation. And no, I don't need to become homogenized. homogenized like everybody else, is God made me for a reason, and I stand for the essence of who I am, and that's my contribution to the world. And I continue to have these conversations every day. People, especially pivoting from an easy name to a harder name. People can't really remember it, can't really spell. It just creates a big conversation. But it's been a really powerful transition. And I will have to say, the first couple of months, I really got emotional. When people call me Payhuan, it felt like I was being seen and acknowledged
Right.
for the first time.
Mhm. Yes. Oh, I so feel that. And when you say that, how do you become more of you when after you move to the United States? And I've done that move when I was 24 years old, that I was the first one from my generation that moved to the United States
Yeah.
and the first immigrant and so on. And it was all about this idea of the American dream, no? Oh, you go
Yes.
to United States and you can achieve it and have all these things. And isn't it the fact that America it's created and based on immigrants? And this is what makes it so beautiful. But when you are actually when you deal with the reality there, you see how much unfortunately racism there still is. So
Mhm.
the fact that you are like, how can I bring more of me and
Yeah.
embracing and standing in your own truth with this new name that it sounds more like your soul name. That's how I
Yeah.
feel. This is your soul's name instead of the human's name. It's such a big thing. And how do people deal with the family, with how you said you had so many different conversations every single day with people that were resisting to call you this new name. So how do you continue standing up in your truth and continue like not giving up
Yeah.
on your dream when you are faced with so much resistance from the outer world? And that happens in anything, not just by you shifting your identity or a new name. So do you have any practical things, any practical tools that we can give to our audience on how can they deal with the resistance when you speak and when you share your truth?
That's a great question. I can't say that I found my way completely through it because I still struggle with this. When this happened to me, I was on an investor call. I run a venture investor backed company, and I have these venture capitalists who knew me as Peter. They didn't get the memo. We're on a big call and it's being taped and addressed me as Peter. And then I'm actually doing kind of like a song, a presentation to a room of, I don't know, 50 people in that environment and hundreds watching online. I still had to choose to go through it. I think it's supposed to be hard in the beginning. The
Mhm.
fact that because if it were easy, because the other way is easy. So I think just in terms of transition, it's just understanding that. But I think there's a lot of meaning and beauty when you dare to go there. And I think the lesson for me has been to dare to go there. Because I think one of the tendencies that I experienced in my life has been the tendency to people please,
Mm.
to say or do things that would make it easier for people to want to like you. My training was actually in electoral politics as well. And politics is really all about, a lot of times, it's really about saying what people want to hear from you as opposed to giving them what you really believe. So it's just a moment to really come from my center and and to risk relationships. Because whenever I do that, I'm really risking a lot, or I'm risking the relationship. But it's also like what has come back to me when I've done those things has just been in the form of like great quality relationship around who I really am, as opposed to becoming some cog in some wheel that I never chose to be in the first place. I don't think there's any real hacks. I would just, generally speaking, then, so what I'm really working toward in all of my life is listen to that little voice. And when you hear it, do it. And it's always like that with my name. Wait, it's called me Peter. And then there are times where I may not correct it just because I have an interaction of 2 seconds and that's all I have right now. But when I can't, I always get back to it. And then after a while, people realize it and they respect it.
And they respect it. And I heard you saying that when we stop people pleasing, when we stop breaking down in priority, because and just it's a habit, no, it's something that I think we all being reinforced with as we grow up. And when we stop doing that, when we stop worrying so much about people pleasing, but instead of really being our true selves, no matter the conversations out, then you're gonna get to have more quality relationships instead of
Yes.
pity.
Yeah. And it's drowned who I really am.
Yes.
And it may cause people to be uncomfortable, but that's that's really up to other people to decide. I've had encountered this with many people now who I believe because of me changing my name have told me that they're considering the same thing. And it's an interesting moment because I think for people watching, this is a really unique moment in America where I think tremendous breakthroughs are had on who we are, and we're having a deep conversation about the soul of this country and who really belongs here and who and what is appropriate. But as all of these things happening is during the pandemic, there was a big wave of anti-Asian violence where people like me are actually sought out and actively brutalized.
Yeah.
And it's been a real phenomenon. So I think choosing to put a Payhuan instead of a homogenous name in this environment is also my way of standing up for what I bring to this country.
And that's so powerful. And how would you say so you did an identity shift through changing your name. How would you say you have changed the way you have showed up in the world with this new identity, with this new name? Like, what has changed from Peter to Payhuan?
I think first of all, it's an internal shift. Whenever I hear the word Payhuan, it just feels really good. It's almost like an affirmation because I just shared with you what the name means to me. It's just like a tattoo, right? It's like the tattoo I have, except the name is forever fixed to me, my soul, my identities. It's an affirmation, choices that I make. It is an affirmation of who I am, my soul identity. And it's an affirmation of what I'm here to do and my mission and what I stand for. So when that becomes your name, it changes everything because ultimately I think it changes your vibration. Like fundamentally changes our identity and vibration in this physical world. I don't have a huge amount. This is still earlier in the process. This is still a year, but and I like the idea of co-creating the world where people don't have to shift themselves in order to be accepted. They don't have to contort themselves. They don't have to do all of those things. And of course, me being in global pop culture, these names have a lot of significance. And I hope that by the choices that I and as my name, as the story travels to places, and I think a lot of people have already done it. One of my personal heroes is Barack Obama. Barack Hussein Obama. Just imagine that. It was super powerful when Barack Hussein Obama became president of the United States. When the Western world was hunting for the other Obama, right? That was the mass terrorist. So he was able to, I think, cause people to really stop and not demonize others. So I'm really excited about doing that for Asians who've been considered forever outsiders in the West, and the perennial foreigners, and I think importantly that we're having a spiritual conversation. We're having a conversation about spirituality. It's important to note that a great body of the knowledge that we are benefiting spiritually have come from the East.
Yeah. Yes.
This, whether it's through Taoist practice, Buddhist practice, Hindu practice, Himalayan, the kind of massive contribution Asian culture, which was originally created in a language, sounds like Payhuan. Much of that goes unacknowledged. I think there's resonance in that. I think even in this moment of the tremendous popularity of spirituality and ideas, that lineage authenticity still has a big place.
Yes, and I couldn't agree more. For me, when I think about spirituality, I think about it. And this is
Yeah.
how you also said at the beginning that you are combining in your vision, in your business right now, the East and the West.
Yes.
The West is more the modern, the logic. That's how I look at it. The modern and the
Sure.
logic, the IP and so on. And it's the soulful, the spirituality, the connection with beyond of what we can comprehend with our logic mind. And
Yeah.
I'm so add that what you do right now through your business, to changing your name, I would say it's not a stand only for Asian people, but it's a stand for uh, any person out there who ever felt as an outsider, who ever felt uh, as not belonging, especially for those that are moving to new countries and are making that transition. And they might experience it themselves or their children, and it goes generation to generation. How do you find your space, your place, and how do you get to live your true self in a country that you feel that you are not welcome or that you don't fully belong there because you are not from there.
You're not, or you're just different what people are used to.
Yes,
Absolutely.
being
I
different
think
is
into
not wrong.
no, there's nothing wrong. And I don't think we're talking about somebody who is resistant to adopting cultures and learning local mores, because I think that's the other side of it. Yes, it's entirely appropriate to learn the local language and custom and respect it. But I would think that it's a two-way street, and that's the beauty of culture, right? I think as somebody who identifies as being bicultural, bilingual, I feel very comfortable in a Chinese environment, and I'm naturally American and Californian, and just having all the influence of language, culturally, aesthetically, I just feel like I have such a rich inner and outer life because there's just endless optionality.
Yes, and it gives you also such a different perspective
Yeah,
around for the whole world, isn't it? Like
it
the
does.
way you perceive the whole world and every single person that you meet, you are able to perceive them and see their for their humanness and not their nationality.
Absolutely. And of course, you've had a similar experience. Someone from a different country, different language, culture, different background, and having that, and then choosing to go to another place. And when you start to stabilize in that, it takes a little bit of time, right? But after you stabilize that in that, you're like, wow, I have such a rich life.
Ye- Yes,
We haven't
yes, and
even talked
creative.
about food, which is the another passion. So yes.
Oh no, food is a better thing in
Oh,
there.
music, aesthetics, and I think the other thing is really about aesthetics. What are the beauty standards? What do we consider beautiful? What do we consider attractive? And those are all the things that are part of this larger conversation
Yeah,
because we are all so different and also beautiful and important in our own way. I think one
exactly.
of the things that has happened when during globalization is that we started to define ourselves by just one standard, which I think is very dangerous. And it's also very, it's just very wrong.
Yes, because there is in anything we do in life, there is never just one way. There are always
No,
multiple ways, and same with us. There is not just one type of beauty or one type of being right or wrong. Or it's so important to keep an open mind and have this diversification in
yeah,
mind, and accept other people's diversification.
no.
And you living in Los Angeles, which it's such a crazy world. I have been there a couple of times, and I was
I love LA.
it's a crazy world. It's definitely not for everyone, and I admire those that are able to live and make something out of it, because it's also
I
very
would, I would push, I would push back on that. That it is for everyone. Keep in mind, LA is actually 88 different cities
thing.
and 88 different cities. So I would invite you to come and visit me in LA. And I bet you I will find you a few corners where you would feel
True.
perfectly at home.
Yes, then that's very true. It depends which part of Los Angeles you go in. But how do you stand out in such a competitive market, especially in the media, yes, in this arena? Because that's why the majority of people, you would say, they would move there because they want to be in this world, in production, being an actor, a musician. Los Angeles, it's known as the heart of that. And how do you stand out? Because you were just sharing with me, you had a beautiful event and a crazy successful event recently. What took for you to get there?
There's a saying, in, I think in many circles, but it's especially true in Hollywood, that it takes 20 years to be an overnight success.
Here.
When success hits you, people who haven't walked in your shoes will say, "Oh, you were lucky, you were there, blah, blah, blah." But maybe, yes, all of those were true, but I think it's just having the foundational work. And for me, going into the business, going into the entertainment world was actually a calling of the soul. So that makes it a little bit different because I chose to be in this business because I think it's an honor privilege and one of the coolest things that you could ever do, which is to be a storyteller. Especially if you can be a storyteller having the kind of impact that we're talking about. Because in my former career, believe it or not, I was a professional politician.
Wow.
It would be my job to I worked for elected officials and senators and mayors. And some of America's most, I think, prof- powerful political leaders were my mentors. So I was getting ready to run for office myself, thinking that was the way that I was going to live my dharma by benefiting the masses. But then it occurred to me, this was the kind of a story of how I shared with you how storytelling impacts people actually came from a lot of direct experience. So going into Hollywood, I had that mission, and I knowing why I was doing the things that I was doing made a big difference. So I think it was so because I knew what I was here to do and why I wanted to do it, it made things a lot easier. So I think knowing why, and as far as going to stand out, um, I think part of it is daring to stand out,
To dare
right?
to.
Daring to stand out, daring to stand out with something that's unique and different, and really intrigues you and you're excited about. So, as a creator, because I create my own stories now. I don't really, I just first, I just first try to please me. That I'm excited about the things that I'm creating and why it excites me. how this is part of my larger mission and purpose. And then once you have all of those things, you can actually adjust at the edges.
Okay.
You can perfect that. You can make it better. So we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
We're doing
I
pretty
see.
good. A lot of the press
Oh, well, I
have now begun to describe Immortal as the next chapter in this globe that most recently was exited by Marvel and DC.
so
On the
excited.
one hand, I don't want to be like them because
Yeah.
we're doing something very different. But it's different enough where, look, it's a larger question, and I think it varies from person to person. But I would say it's important to know who you are and what you want to do.
That's so deep and so profound. And I know for the business owners, especially that are listening out there, you share something, a piece that is very important. And you said that first and foremost, look to please yourself. And then we gonna adjust the edges because what I have learned in the business, what I hear constantly and what I see a lot out there is okay, give the market what they need, what they want, give them what they want. That's how you formulate your marketing. But then you get yourself out there and create a product, create an offer that you're not even like excited to do it, but you just do it because you think that's what people are gonna buy. And then you find yourself being like in a prison of your own making
Yeah,
because you don't know what you are doing.
yeah.
Is that something you have experienced in your previous businesses? Because you said this is your seventh business. So guys, this is someone that has a lot of experience in the entrepreneurial journey.
I would have to say that I've always been a map. So that's part of my personality. And I think it comes a little bit easy for me just because those are my natural tendencies. I don't disrupt things for its own sake, but I have very strong opinions about what works and what doesn't. I think that's why I needed to be an entrepreneur. That's why I needed to have the final say because I felt so strongly about it.
Yes. So
Um,
you would say you never really dealt with that issue where you created the product or a service just for the sake of what the market truly wants, but you weren't fully passionate about it.
I can say that I've never done.
That's amazing. That's
Look, I know the temptation because I think it's all too well every weekend, every day, new show and people are talking about. There's a new movie, there's a new song, there's this new way of doing things. The cultural tides are constantly changing. So if I were to use that as my own litmus test, I would be shifting every day and how troubling is that?
yeah.
But having said that, but I do think I think making accommodations for the market, making it more accessible and relevant, easy to consume, those are really important skill sets too. And I'm certainly not talking about those
Right.
things.
Yes. But
But
I hear you.
and those things are supposed to help the fundamental thing. Otherwise, so I think as a creator, as an entrepreneur, as visionary, then you just really have to stay true to who you are and back to spirit. I think when you're on the mental journey, you end up becoming more and more like this unique soul that we all are.
Yes. So the importance of what you just shared right now that I just highlighted here in my notes is really getting back to your inner compass to know who you really are, uh, what you do and why you do it.
Yeah.
Like, why do you even go about starting a business, working on that project? Why? Because the why behind it is going to give you the fuel, no? Because the hard time it's going to come. That's inevitable when you build a business, when you go on a vision, when you go about creating something big. the hard times are inevitable, but if you know your why behind it, you're gonna be able to stand behind that vision. Is that right?
Yeah. And even if it doesn't work, and sometimes it doesn't work, which is also okay.
Mm.
You
How
know,
you know how do you know when to move on to, because you had seven businesses. How do you know when to move on, to let go of that business, of that project, of that baby, because it doesn't work out, and to move on to something new, to something else?
I think self-knowledge and the ability to be really objective is important. I've had situations where the business no longer reflected, no longer captured my passion.
Mhm.
And businesses, I think, especially earlier stage businesses, are loved into being. The kind of emotional energy you need to put forth something to really make it worth and magnetize, I think it's first animated by love. So if you're not able to give it that's love, then I think this child has just lost his parent. Will it continue to thrive and innovate and do all the things that you wanted to do? So that's one scenario. The other one is 5 years ago, I was actually, I think in our earlier conversations, I was actually in many businesses. For the past 20 years, I built up a pretty significant track record navigating between the East and West in commerce, in art, in films, in investments. But when the environment completely soured between America and China, it became apparent I had to shut down or close the companies that were no longer viable.
Mhm.
So the market would also tell you in that particular case, it was no longer financially feasible. So that's, although financial feasibility, I wouldn't say is always the only indicator, because oftentimes the big breakthrough follows the hardship. I think it's supposed to be like that.
Mhm.
There are tests, or I think in entrepreneurial life, we talked about escape velocity. Just having built up enough momentum where you could actually just break free from the inertia. Because just getting something started and then and being able to launch it and have really be out there, reaching escape velocity is requires a lot of energy. And
Yeah.
oftentimes the breakthrough comes after the struggle.
Yes, it does. And which one would you say has been one of your biggest breakthroughs in business? What helped you? What is that one breakthrough right now when you go back and look at it, you realize that it's been on this moment after so many years on this journey that has really made a big difference for you.
I would say unequivocally the inner work. I would say unequivocally looking at my mind and my life and my consciousness as the fundamental building blocks of everything that happens in my life has made all the difference. Because then it's not dealing with a lot of out there stuff. It's always here. So just really understanding and owning and committing to that has made all the difference in the world. And in that way, I think running the business, it's just part of having a successful, grounded life where our soul, our consciousness, and who we are, in our dreams, and our hopes are the center of it. And I think just being on the spiritual journey has given me the tools and the understanding to manifest it. So I would say
The
you can
inner
drop the
work.
mic on that, because I don't think there's anything else, right?
Yes. Oh, that's so powerful. And I know that this is going to inspire a lot of people. And we know, I think in Reiki, they share this where they say that your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. So the more you work on yourself and do the inner work, which looks different for each and every person out there, but you gotta know what it means for you. And it's different type of actions and non-action that you can take around that. It's going to make the biggest difference for you. That was so amazing, Payhuan. And I know I told you I'm only going to keep you for 1 hour, and we are very close. And I know you have a very busy schedule, so I want to make sure I honor our time and our listeners' times. And is there like a one last thing you would like to share with the audience before we wrap up this beautiful podcast interview that we just had?
Sure. I think I shared with you the mission of Immortal a little bit earlier, which awakens grow in everyone. Is that I believe we all have a beautiful mission that's uniquely tied to who we are and what we're here to do, and it's so different for everybody. It is so different. Some people are going to change the world through building a mass next gazillion-dollar business. Somebody will find a technology, or somebody will be an amazing kindergarten teacher. So the next generation of kids will wake up feeling loved and sought after. It's just that I just want to urge everybody to find what that is and not look for what it looks like for other people. And when you really find that, I think that's when everything just falls into place. So I would just say, awaken your hero and don't look for, and it doesn't have to be like everybody else's, or just follow your heart of what it's supposed to be for you.
So beautiful. And you're going to feel that in your heart. So first and foremost, that's where you're going to know.
You always know.
Yeah. That
you always know it. This feels.
Yes. And I know for me, one way I know something is true. And it's like having goosebumps throughout my whole body.
I love it. It's like one of my tests working out stories and ideas. It's that I pay attention to the goosebumps.
I love it. This
goosebumps are here. And by the way, the goosebumps are here. Things that we've had an exchange, and I'm just really thankful for the invitation, have this conversation, because I don't always have to have it. I don't always get to talk about it this way. I'm operating in mainstream Hollywood, where talking about this kind of thing, it's still, especially within the industry, it's not a common endeavor.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. And I'm very thankful you said yes to this invitation, and I'm very grateful for us connecting between about 1,500 people at Unveil University.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to follow your journey. And I appreciate all of you, and I believe in you, and I love you. And I'm so excited and so grateful for the time that we live in, because they are really some exciting, great times for what we can create and co-create together. Thanks for tuning in to Spiritual Changemakers podcast. To stay connected and help us reach more people like you, please subscribe, follow, and leave a comment. Join our community of spiritual changemakers on social media to connect with like-minded individuals and continue the conversation. Remember, the power to create positive change is within you. Keep showing up as your best self, and let's keep the magic of change alive. Until next time.